Regular meeting. We can have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Moats?
Here.
Mrs. Oberlin?
Here.
Mr. Rodenberger?
Here.
Mr. Wall?
Here.
Mr. Morton?
Here.
We can stand for the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are still holding the COVID, public presentations, but encourage the public to email or call if they have something they want to share with us. And that's going to take us to our treasurer's report. This is what we're about.
It's, of course, that time of year again where we go and do the temporary appropriations for next year and the final certificate and appropriations for this year. So the first one is the temporary appropriations. Those are set at $34,971,028. I'm sorry, $34,971,028.59.
What was that number again?
Let me say it again.
Say it again 3 times real fast.
Basically what I did, because of the situation that we had with the school for the last 3 months, normally we go in and set these as a percentage of expended or budgeted for the previous year. So instead of doing that, I actually went through just line item by line item, because if we would have done that, it would have been set lower than what we would need next year if we went back at 100%. So that's why you'll see those differences. And then we went through anything outside of the general fund with any information we have to date of those funds. So that's the temporary appropriations. Are there any questions on those? Final appropriations ended up at $36,467,632.82. With a prior year carryover of $905,000. Total appropriations for the year were $37,372,756.84. Of course, that's not what we actually spent, that's appropriations. We have about $500,000 left in encumbrances, and we're working on lowering those to see what the carryover encumbrances will be. So that won't be the final number of what was spent, but it should be very close to what was spent. On the amended certificate, you can see that our beginning cash balance of all funds was $15,554,527.01. We received this year $8,980,293.44 in taxes, $26,962,741.70 in other resources, for a total of $51,497,559.17. So the $51,000 is not what we collected this year. That includes a carryover of $15 million. So those are those documents. Does anybody have any questions on the final? You will get in August, because the July meeting is too soon. Once we close out our books for the fiscal year end, June 30th, I will be coming to you and let you know what exactly that impact will be on the 5-year forecast. Right now, I believe we're looking at coming in, not deficit spending for this year, but it's very tight, so we don't want to make an assumption, because every time it seems like I say that, then we get a big bill the next day and nothing happens. So.
Yeah, send them back.
This sheet that was in there just basically shows you the appropriations, the certificate, and then the difference column that has to be positive. So like when you get these sheets, that's the one thing you're looking at, is that all those line items are positive. So, and you can see with that, the difference in the general fund is about $11.6 million. So that is estimated to be our carryover, minus any carryover encumbrances. Next thing is, where it's that time of year when we renew the property, fleet, liability, and cyber insurance. In your packet, you will have a quote from First Insurance Group. They looked at different vendors. The two vendors that seemed comparable to each other were Liberty Mutual and Sorsa. You can see on that sheet the breakdown of the amounts for those two. They're a little bit different because one includes things that the other doesn't, so they look off, but they're really not. But the bottom line is Liberty Mutual is the less expensive of the two, so that's our current insurer, so that's who I'm recommending for state.
I have a question. Did the Ohio Schools Council ever, Liberty Mutual, did that save us any?
No.
Okay. Because they quote us the price that they would quote
And
through
I
Ohio
guess I
Schools
should say
Council.
no, Tim did not get back with that answer.
Okay.
So there might be additional savings on that, we just don't know which one we had in school council, but it would have affected both premiums.
Sure.
Because
So-
they're members of both.
Was the difference essentially that the Liberty Mutual policy doesn't have the certified acts of terrorism coverage?
There was, I think, let me take a look. There were several differences that he went over with us. But yeah, the terrorism is included in the source of premium. There was some, I guess, discussion regarding the $350 million aggregate that Source offers versus Liberty Mutual not having that aggregate total. So I think looking at this, and we never, we always turn down the terrorism coverage, is why that's a negative on the Liberty Mutual side. But I don't have a breakdown of what theirs would have cost for terrorism, so I'm assuming that's part of the difference, but there was other differences as well that made us choose one over the other.
I think the big concern that the agent had was that there's a limited, cap of, limited cap of money, and the source of, and he said, heaven forbid that you have a major storm come through here and get 4 or 5 or 6 schools that are all SORSA school districts, and they have it all capped for that group at $350 million. Is that likely to happen? No, but it was one of the concerns.
What is inland marine coverage?
That's a great question, because I asked it as well. So when we have a lawnmower that we drive from the elementary to the high school, or from here to downtown, or we're bringing a snowplow, that's called inland marine coverage, because we're transporting like a maintenance or commercial vehicle that is not a licensed vehicle for road, but we're permitted to take it between our properties on the road. We have to have that insurance to cover. So our flashing yellow lights with our slow-moving vehicle symbol is the requirement for that vehicle to be on the road when we do that. So
Yeah, maybe I wrote it somewhere.
I was thinking inland marine. We have some on the river? I didn't know. Yeah, I really didn't. Yeah.
Go fishing for fish.
What is SL, what's the source of that?
It's a big.
School specific?
Yes, yes,
specific.
yes. And it's kind of, Michael, they are like they're the parent company, and then they shop all of those individual policies out to companies like Liberty Mutual, Travelers, Farmers, whatever. But they are the agent per se.
Schools-Ohio Risk Sharing Authority. It says they're a nonprofit member-owned consortium providing property, bus, educator liability for public schools in Ohio.
Is this coverage cost comparable to last year?
I
Doesn't it
believe
probably went up?
it did go up a little bit. I want to say about 15,000 increase.
Even because the school's been shut down for half a year, but
Well, that doesn't include the discount that we got for the buses sitting still, but we still have to insure the property with the even if the kids aren't here, so. And I forget the main reason that it went up.
It went up primarily for us commercial fleet insurance, he said, is going through the roof for everyone. And that's what, with our buses, that's the biggest difference. That's where we saw it. So even though we're seeing a net savings this year, for next year, commercial fleet insurance is just, he said, I don't know why. It's just going up exponentially. I don't know, Wes, do you have any insight on that, having commercial fleet insurance yourself?
Just kind of, if they had a big loss somewhere.
Trying to recoup maybe some of the money that,
Or if there's an anticipation that they're going to be running multiple routes, and that's going to put them at greater risk for day.
quite possible.
If schools choose to do it.
Right.
The last thing I have is an agreement with McManus and Dosen. Normally that's on the consent agenda. They provide Medicaid audit services that we're required to have a third party do that for our Medicaid program. But this year they are asking about a 2-year agreement, and since the price is set for those 2 years, I recommend that we enter into that agreement for those 2 years. $4,900, it stays at $4,900 for both years, so. Last year, they were at 47.
Is the contract long?
I'm sorry?
Because it says cost reporting July 1, 18 to June 30, 19.
They audit Medicaid, like,
You're in the rears?
yeah,
Gotcha.
like, yeah, they have to audit, like, right now, I think they're doing 18, 19. Because it's like when we get that, it's kind of, I call it a true up at the end, for Medicaid claim, so they're a little bit behind, so, yeah, I looked at that too, and I'm like, they just not forget to copy any numbers, but, yeah, it was for those.
They remember, but the price increased, they remember changing the date, right?
Yeah. So that's, all I have under my, discussion items. The next thing under action, is the financials from May of 2020. Does anybody have any questions?
I called in with a couple questions on the check register. I got all of my, finally James' phone died.
I make motion
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Modes?
Yes.
Mrs. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Rodenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes. Okay, so then do we also have a motion for the temporary appropriations for FY '21?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Rodenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Modes?
that. Yes.
Then we're going to move on to the final certificate of estimated resources and final appropriation modifications, FY '20.
I'll
Yeah.
move on.
Yes.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Rodenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Modes?
Yes.
Mrs. Oberlin?
Yes.
Recommending participation of federal programs and in the federal lunch and breakfast programs for the upcoming school year. Any questions or discussions on that item? I take it that's a standard every year.
It is. That's why I didn't have another discussion. It's, basically those amounts are dictated by federal law, so we just have to have a resolution to participate in it every year.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Modes?
Yes.
Mrs. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Rodenberger?
Yes.
Renewal of property, fleet, liability, and cyber insurance. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move on 4.5.
I'll second. Go with Liberty Mutual.
Is that what the motion is?
Yes.
We should get a little email. We should get
send in the request.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Overland?
Yes.
Mr. Rodenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Last item on your agenda is the McManus and Tosin agreement for 2 years for, Medicaid, right?
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement. I'll second.
Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Overland?
Yes.
Mr. Rodenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes. Mr. Martin, here to you.
All right. Probably the hottest topic in the area is, are we gonna reopen school and how we're gonna reopen it in the fall? Probably not only in the area, but in the state of Ohio. The governor stated last week that they'd have some recommended guidance this week and a little more concrete information. What date is that? He did not have a press conference today. I anticipate as early as tomorrow and as late as Thursday. He's kind of been taking Fridays off as well. And we had 59 superintendents on a Zoom in the region, and it's kind of boiling down to, you have the county health commissioners, superintendents, we had a couple of physicians on, and it's looking like it's going to be, here are some recommendations that we ask that you follow, and they're going to say, hey, elected Board of Education members and communities, decide how you're going to follow these recommendations and what you would like to do. What I think will happen is you'll see a red light, yellow light, green light type of scenario put into place, where when it's a green light, things are going well, your cases in your area are not rising, there's not community spread, proceed following the following recommendations or cautions. There's a yellow light, we're going to ask you to be aware, maybe implement your, meaning there is a rise, we're going to ask you to implement your blended learning plan in place, maybe close school for a few days, do some cleaning, and of course I think there'll be a red light recommendation to where there's a large spread community-wise, it would be close your buildings like we did this spring for a period of time. That's my opinion based upon trying to glean that from about every organization that I'm a member of and attending those meetings. That leads into 5.2, a community survey. I think getting the input, we told you last meeting we would have a future planning survey to get out to the community. What I wanted to do before we put this out is bring this to you and show you and seek input, anything you would like to add, delete, change, along those lines.
You're gonna distribute this back?
So this survey would be in electronic format. We have a couple of thousand email addresses in our database, social media, and on our website. And then we would direct, it would actually be housed on our website, and then we would direct people through social media, the links would go to that, so.
And are we directing this to parents or
This is
community-wide?
to parents of children that attend school, parents, guardians, caretakers, whomever might be the person responsible for that young person that attends our school district. Okay? And it also gives us, in the event that we have to do some remote learning, some input from the remote learning component. What did we do well? What do we need to do better? I think the number one factor, and from our perspective, is we can't communicate enough what this could potentially look like. I don't want to get people nerved up about, oh my gosh, they're already planning about not coming back to school when we don't know what it is. So I'm kind of hoping we get some guidance and they can get this out with maybe some modifications after we get some governor's guidance. So that's the plan.
Why, I looked at the, I'm sorry.
I think I was gonna say something similar to you, right?
I looked at the plan that you sent us, you don't have a copy for.
It's in the, it's actually attached in your, I sent you like the form that the form it would go out in survey form. You have like a Word document attached in your agenda.
Under community survey?
Yes.
Are you signing
Under 5.2, there should be a, under
Yeah,
your,
there's not an attachment in our agenda items.
I have,
I have future planning survey.
yeah, I have it right too.
I do too.
I thought it was on there before when I logged in, but it's not on there right now.
So the version you have would be like the Survey Monkey version, it's our Google version of it, what I emailed to you for you, so you could see what it would look like.
Wait, so this is what?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. So it's the same, I just gave it to you and then how you would respond form versus the Word form that I'm looking at.
Okay.
Okay?
Michael, I have it on my phone if you want to use this.
Oh, I went and did the Survey Monkey version
Okay.
today, and I thought it was pretty self-explanatory. The one question I had is it the same way if you look at it on your phone? Because that's the way a lot of people are doing it.
So it's Google will, it's a Google form is what it is officially called, okay? And it recognizes if you're on a mobile device. Now, is it as easy to use and put in there are some long form answers, but it does recognize the mobile version. We're not asking for their name, their address, or anything like that. We just want them to register an email, because if they say, hey, we would like to see this, or we have concerns because we have a son that has major medical conditions, we want to be able to respond to them via their email, like, hey, that's a valid point, how can we help or assist you in that?
Well, when I was looking at it the other day, of course, question number 1, 2, and 3 wants to know if you plan on attending full-time, part-time, or split session. So if you were to say, yes, I plan on attending full-time, and the same individual says no to the next 2,
That means
they're solely.
That means I believe they want to come back to school, that's correct.
Okay, so that's how you're evaluating that.
Yes.
Then on the family well-being, what best describes your child's typical internet? My child does not have reliable access. My child has reliable internet access, but only through a smartphone. My child has reliable internet access, but it is slow. My child has reliable internet access through more than a smartphone, and it is fast.
So if you have good internet, then you're probably not going to answer any of those. It would be more than on a smartphone, is that what you're asking?
You don't have to answer.
You don't have to answer any of them.
Yeah, but to get a good.
So you're saying you should say my child has
Reliable
reliable access
and-
and
access.
fast.
Add that as an option. We have reliable internet access.
And what best describes your family's food situation, same thing, you don't have anything saying
We're okay.
Fine.
Okay.
Child's social and emotional, that's fine. So I just, those questions just came up. I didn't
Sure.
know,
Sure. So I'm giving it to you. I want, you're a parent. I want to know if you're interpreting it that way. I want you to give your input. The social emotional component, when we were meeting with the physicians last Thursday afternoon, they said that these were a couple of ProMedica physicians, a couple of Mercy physicians, and they were out at Toledo, but they were talking about they are seeing a significant increase in some depression and anxiety as a result of children having, quote, things taken away from them, at the end of a school year, being anxious about going to school. It might not look the same as it has been. They're hearing the same reports, like what's it going to be like to ride a bus, what's it going to be like to be in a cafeteria, because they have access to that instantaneously, just like, we do. And it's creating some more levels of children anxiety and depression, and so that's something that I think we as a school district have to be very cognizant of, and that's why we need to look at the social and emotional support mechanisms that we have in place, and how can we enhance them.
Well, anytime I see the first question or number 3, what best describes the child's social and emotional situation? And it states we're okay right now without support from the school district. To me, that's implying that we'd be much better if we had support from the school district. Some people might be offended by the fact that we're saying, you need support from the school district.
So, and again, we can clarify those up when we're talking about support from the school district, that would be where we were referring children to tackle, or we had a regular setup where they were meeting with their counselor, or we had wraparound meetings with other agencies, and we kind of spearheaded those conversations. It's kind of a generic way without asking for specific ways, like, you know, do you have wraparound services, do you see tackle? And maybe we need to be specific.
Well, I don't know, you don't necessarily need to be specific, I just think another choice might be we're okay.
Yeah. Kind of like we're good on the food and the internet as well.
Food and-
Yeah.
I'll be interested in how question number 5 comes out. The remote learning, workload.
Some will say it was too much, and some will say it was not enough, and some will say, we have remote learning.
Anything else on the survey?
So this is going on,
Well, what we'll do, I'll go in and make those changes. I'll email you a version of it again. If you don't respond, okay, if you respond like, hey, I still, you know, I don't understand quite what you're asking, or, no, that's exactly what I wanted it to be. One of the things that, if you have more than one child in, you know, I was thinking, if you have a elementary child and a high school child, the remote learning experience could have been significantly different from one or the other. So you have to respond multiple times in that. So I think we set the limit that if you have 6 children, you can respond 6 different times on the remote learning component.
I think there was one question where you asked for a suggestion or something, and that came to my mind. Parents with multiple children, if we were to split the days, that those kids can all attend on the same day, regardless of what class they're in. Here's why I have some kids in elementary on Monday, Wednesday, or in high school on Tuesday, Thursday.
So we've actually, Deanna, Jane, and I mocked up kindergarten room, first grade room, and third grade room, based upon what the draft recommendations are right now. And then we came over here, and Matt and I and Jay, and we mocked up what a room would look like here. And we all kind of got blotchy in our neck and a little nervous because we were able to get, in some rooms, 10, and some rooms 12. And based upon 6-foot distancing, and where the chairs would have to sit, because you know, you think of a classroom, everybody thinks 4 walls. Well, they're not square per se. And then in our elementary school, we have some classrooms where 2 little kids share a table like this, and they would not meet that criteria of being that. And how would we do that? And I do believe that, you know, after going through that, I think it put a really big eye-opening picture for the principals. Like, I said, just relax, let's wait and see what happens, and if what kind of guidance we get. And once we get that, if we have to then sit down all summer and develop a creative scheduling, then that's what we'll do. We'll figure it out. And I think they were relieved. I think Mark at the bus garage is thinking the same thing. We barely have enough bus drivers now to pick up all our kids and go get it. What if we have to transport multiple times throughout the day? Some of our bus drivers have full-time jobs. They drive bus in the morning, go work all day, and then come drive bus in the afternoon. So, you know, again, how is that going to play out? Are they going to have to wear masks? That's going to be the #1 question. Are kids going to have to wear masks at school? Are teachers going to have to wear masks? You can read one authority that says masks don't do any good, and you can read another authority that says it's the only way to prevent the spread of the disease. So I think we have to trust our local health people, and Jamie Gherkin at the health department, the health commissioner, has been fantastic to work with, giving us great suggestions, advice, quick to respond to questions. And when this comes out, I know that we as the county superintendents in the Northwest Ohio, 4 county superintendents, everybody's health commissioner has a little different process, but we'll kind of have a general, we're all going to do these types of things, and then it'll be a little different for everybody. You know, we were talking about if we go back, if you can go to Walmart and you can go back to school, are we going to be allowed to have fans at a football game or at a volleyball game or, you know, parent-teacher conferences, and how's this all gonna play out? And I said, I gotta quit thinking about it, I'll drive myself crazy, I gotta just slow down and let some recommendations come out and move forward, so.
In the event that we were to go to split sessions, that's gonna put a pretty big financial strain on a lot of families,
Mhm.
for one, because of the daycare, or childcare. Will all the teachers need to be in the building on those days, or can they be split? Okay, what I'm trying to get at is, can we come up with some cooperative or cooperation with the daycare centers and maybe place teachers there? And maybe
One of the questions that came out of it, Gary, is that, keep in mind, we could potentially have faculty members, support staff that are high risk,
right.
okay? And those people may have to become our remote learning experts or whatever and do that. One of the things that we talked about was, if I'm having, I don't know, a teacher, a third grade teacher's classes, and she has half on one day and half on another day, but she's gotta then, is the first half coming back on Wednesday, or are they all doing remote learning on Wednesday, and the first half coming back on Thursday, and then the second half coming back on Friday? And what does that look like? Or do we say, you know, these 6 are our third grade teachers, these 3 are our remote third grade teachers, and they do all the online stuff, so there's a lot of options. Then I had it's called Defiance 2100 meeting, and daycare is becoming a huge issue, not only potentially for us, but in the community for our workforce. And we, with ProMedica and us, we actually talked about is there a type of a collaborative we can develop to have a daycare center somewhere that because if we can't have a kid in a school and the mom's a nurse, and she doesn't have anyone to watch her kids, then it hurts the kid and it hurts the hospital if they can't. So we were talking about what can we do with our businesses and the schools, and can we develop a collaborative that is not all encompassing, but at least gives them another option. So there's some discussion about that.
Anything else?
Hey, thanks, we're gonna need a little bit. We're gonna need a little bit. And I told all your principals, I said, you know, your last day of your contract is like Thursday. I said, don't turn your cell phone off, because I'll be, and they are, of course, all very understanding and willing to dig in anytime, so. All right. We're on 5.3, Auditorium Renovations. Clifford Hunt, painting was in today, setting up the scaffolding and getting it prepared to paint. I thought they'd have a little mock-up wall for you. I have I'd say a crude rendering, and the coloration samples look terrible. I didn't want to bring it to you and have you go, oh my gosh, that looks bad. So he said, let's get it painted on the wall so you can really see what it looks like. So I will have that. They think they'll be in there about 2 weeks to paint, and when they will, sand the stage floor, they'll paint the walls, the trim, and bring it back to period correct, and I think it'll look fantastic when it's finished. Then where you have the curtain company, they will come in and replace the curtains, obviously after painting takes place. And this company is the company that put the curtains in 1984. Same company. The Sun runs it now. Then carpet will be installed the week on the week of August 1st. So it'll look really nice, and hopefully we'll be able to fill it up, and we'll be permitted to have large gatherings of people in there, and we can turn the air conditioning on and look how beautiful it is, and be proud to call it our own. So
Does the seats, do they have to be taken out?
for the carpet,
Yeah.
no, they do not. We had looked at removing the seats and redoing all of the floor, and it just became a really time-sensitive, labor-intensive. So moving down the road in the future, I think that we'll look at, that's maybe the next step in where we are with that, so.
I knew knew at one time there was talk, I think, about making them further apart.
We're gonna remove a couple of rows in the front, that gives us in the future the ability to spread them out a little bit. And the removing of the front row seats is for ADA compliance, so. Okay. Any questions on the auditorium? Maybe we'll have a school board meeting in there when it's finished. What do you think?
Yes, it would. Love it.
Okay. Sit up on the stage and turn on the bright lights and sweat for a little bit. All right. It's hot, it's hot. High school student handbook, Mr. Durger presented that, and the only changes in it were, he wanted to specifically put the school calendar and put a designation on there that this might change. He wanted everybody to know. Of course, there were some date changes in there, but no other changes. Same thing with the elementary handbooks and date changes. And a first-time registration student, and the process to do that was added to that. So, if you don't have any questions on those, I'd like to see approval for those in the consent agenda.
Anything else?
That's it.
All right, so we are gonna move on to the consent agenda. Minutes of the June 10 regular meeting, accepted donations, medical leave for a teacher into October. And in employment matters, we do have a retirement. Mrs. Westrick, our high school secretary, will be retiring effective June 30. She's been with us for 15 years and has served as well. In addition, we also have a big employment here as well with our head boys basketball coach. The program will be taken over by Brett Lehman in the upcoming school year, and we wish you the best of luck. Technical services agreement with NBCA and NWOCA, membership fees. This is a
That's an ADM rate, that's
Yeah.
how they bill us based on the number of students that.
reoccurring every year.
Yep,
Same with the fiscal agent for the IDEA grant.
yep.
Fiscal agent for Title III, English language grant custodian. And we're going to approve in this the high school student handbook and DES student handbook for 2021. Any questions or comments anyone wants to make on the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move on to the consent agenda.
No other discussion, roll call please.
Mrs. Oberlin?
Yes.
Mr. Rodenberger?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Modes?
Yes.
We're going to move on to, do we have any old business come before the board? Any new business?
Football season.
Hopefully.
Boy, they're talking,
When you see, you know, a college bringing kids back and then they get 20 tested positive, and that only has a trickle-down effect, you're very aware of that.
Now, was today the day that something could start?
Yes, like phase 2 of the athletic reopening. So like you could play 5-on-5 basketball in the gym.
So we're going to next, as the week progresses, hopefully we'll be able to do something.
I think when you look at it, I'll say our region, we're pretty fortunate. And it is really it's a poverty density issue. And we're pretty fortunate we're spread out.
I do have, as far as new teacher day and things like that, coming up soon. Without any other guidelines, those will still be conducted the same way. There won't be an online new teacher day or anything like that.
If we're going back to school, and as we have in the past, we will conduct those the exact same way. If we're not, and we are under some sort of restriction where we cannot meet face-to-face, then we would probably we'd have to have some sort of face-to-face meeting with them to go through our induction program and set them up with everything. But I see us meeting right here, Sherry, this is where it has occurred in the last couple of years, and doing that. I think if we could, some way, shape, or form, have something cool with the new auditorium, with all of the renovated auditorium, with all of our faculty and staff, and showcase that, I think that'd be pretty cool. Maybe have a freaking rock band in there, you know? Make it really cool. Gary, you want to sing?
No.
Okay.
I think I'll do a better job myself in the shower.
Okay, nobody wants to see that. Anything else? If not, we're going to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing appointments.
Yes, item 1, the appointment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of a public employee or official.
And just so you know, Tim, we will be reviewing with the board members tonight the superintendent treasurer's evaluations. Hopefully finalize those, and then we'll bring back to our next meeting any outcomes that's newsworthy. Okay? Just have a lot of gold stars ready.
I'll take them home. I'll give half to Cheryl.
I'll make the
Okay, so
motion.
do we have a motion to go into exec session?
I'll make the motion.
Who's second?
Here.
Roll call please at, what was it, 5:42.
Mr. Ruber?
Yes.
Mr. Wall?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Rhodes?
Yes.
Mrs. Rowland?
No.